Have you ever truly asked yourself if the decisions you make are really your own? What if I told you that some of the most important choices in your life were never made by you at all? It might sound exaggerated, but the truth is, there's a game being played. And if you don't know the rules, you're not a player. You're a piece on someone else's board. Imagine this. A psychological experiment is set up in a crowded mall. One actor stands still, silently staring upward. He doesn't say a word, and yet, within minutes, dozens of people start doing the same. They look up. No one knows why, but they do it anyway. Now expand that to more serious choices. Your politics, your spending, your habits and beliefs. Have you ever believed something just because it felt familiar, but never questioned where it came from? The truth is, real manipulation doesn't look like control. It doesn't shout or force. It flows like water, quiet, effortless, a subtle phrase repeated over time, a certain tone in someone's voice, a well-placed image on your screen, and suddenly you're defending an idea like it's yours, when in fact, it never was. But what if you could see through the illusion? What if you could spot the strings behind the stage, and maybe even learn how to pull them yourself? That's what the greatest strategists in history have always done. They didn't push. They didn't scream. They made others move willingly. Napoleon knew it. Machiavelli wrote the manual. Modern leaders, marketers, and influencers apply it every day. The golden rule: don't make someone act, make them want to. If you've never heard this before, here's the harsh reality. Someone out there already knows how this works. They've shaped the way you think, the way you feel, even the things you crave. But from this point on, you don't have to stay in the dark, because today we pull back the curtain. So let me ask you directly, would you rather keep playing the role of the puppet, or are you ready to finally understand how the strings are being pulled? If your answer is the second, stay close, because what I'm about to show you might just change the way you see everything. If you still believe your decisions are fully rational, brace yourself. The human mind isn't built for total autonomy. It's designed for survival. And survival requires shortcuts. Your brain is constantly looking for ways to save energy, and it does that by using patterns, biases, and default settings. That's not a conspiracy, that's biology. But anyone who understands those shortcuts can hijack them. Let's start with confirmation bias. It's the tendency to seek and accept only the information that confirms what you already believe, while ignoring everything else. That's why a lie, repeated often enough, doesn't just sound true, it feels true. Manipulators don't need to prove anything. They just need to repeat, gently, consistently, until the idea settles in and becomes comfortable, familiar. Yours. Then there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, a mental blind spot where the less someone knows about a subject, the more confident they tend to be. And the more someone actually understands, the more they doubt. If you're aiming to influence, this is gold. You don't need to convince someone logically. You just feed their ego. Make them feel like they've figured it out on their own, and they'll fight to protect that illusion. Now think about scarcity. When something seems rare, we instantly give it more value. Limited offer. Only a few will understand this. Most people will never know. These phrases don't just sell products, they sell status. They trigger our ancient survival drive. If it's rare, I need it. And when knowledge is framed as exclusive, we crave it. Not because it's useful, but because it makes us feel above the crowd. So take a moment to reflect. Where do you see these tactics in your daily life? Why do certain brands dominate entire industries? Why do millions follow political figures without asking a single hard question? Why are celebrities idolized for doing almost nothing? It's not about logic. It's about psychology, used with precision. And here's the most dangerous part. Most people don't even notice it. They walk through life convinced they're in control. They call their beliefs truths, But in reality, someone else planted the seed, and they watered it themselves. So now the question becomes, do you stay in the fog, or do you learn to see the patterns before they unfold? Because in the next chapter, we're going deeper. We'll decode the real game, the dark strategies that have shaped history. If you're ready to face it, don't look away. Real control doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't arrive like a command, it spreads like a suggestion. The most powerful influence doesn't feel like influence at all. It feels natural, like your own idea. And that's the genius of history's greatest manipulators. They made people walk willingly down a path they didn't choose, believing they had. No true master of power ever needed to shout or threaten. The smartest leaders, from Napoleon to Silicon Valley CEOs, understood one truth. People are ruled more easily by their vices than their virtues. As Machiavelli put it, power isn't sustained by force, but by perceived necessity. If people believe they need you, submission becomes a choice, not an imposition. Let's break down the 5 core strategies they've used for centuries. First, silent induction. The novice tries to argue and persuade directly, challenging beliefs, demanding change. But the mind resists confrontation. We protect our identity. That's why skilled influencers never confront. They shape the environment. They let you arrive at your decision, even if it was theirs all along. Think about how revolutions happen. Monarchs fall, empires crumble, ideologies rise. And yet, the masses rarely feel forced. They feel enlightened. The king doesn't lose power because someone said step down. He loses it because the world around him subtly shifts, until his presence no longer fits the story being told. Second, the mass effect. Humans are wired for belonging. In tribal times, being cast out meant death. That fear still lives in us, so we seek alignment. Consensus. If everyone seems to believe something, it feels safer to agree than to question. That's why the illusion of majority is such a powerful tool. When a lie feels like public truth, few dare to resist. Movements gain traction, not because people understand them, but because others seem to. Individuals hesitate, crowds don't. Once enough people repeat an idea, even skeptics surrender. The illusion of everyone's saying this becomes its own form of truth, and just like that, the current carries them all downstream. Third, repetition as a weapon. The brain loves familiarity. What we hear often feels more true than what we hear once. It doesn't matter if it's logical, just that it's repeated. Propaganda machines know this. Corporations do too. Repetition isn't about clarity, it's about comfort. The more you hear something, the less you question it. A slogan here, a headline there. The same story told a dozen times, in different colors, from different voices. Until one day, you stop asking, is this real? And start saying, I've heard that before. And that's enough. Because to your brain, repeated equals reliable. And what feels reliable becomes true. Fourth, emotional leverage. No strategy works without this. Emotion overrides reason. Always. People don't act because of facts. They act because of how they feel. Fear, pride, rage. These are the true levers of control. Fear drives obedience. Pride breeds loyalty. Rage creates enemies. Together they build unshakable conviction. Fear is the oldest trick in the book. When people feel threatened, they'll follow anyone who offers safety, even if it costs them their judgment. Pride is subtler. If someone believes they're part of a chosen few, they'll cling to that identity, no matter the evidence. And anger. It binds groups tighter than love ever could. Give people an enemy, and they'll march without asking why. Finally, the scarcity illusion. What's common feels cheap. What's rare feels divine. Humans crave what's exclusive, what not everyone can have. That's why manipulation often hides behind elitism. The limited offer, the secret knowledge, the chosen group. If it feels scarce, it feels sacred, and people will chase it without blinking. The best manipulators don't just sell products or beliefs, they sell status. They say, "Follow me, and you'll be one of the few who truly see." Whether it's a guru with hidden truths, a political leader with the only real answers, or a brand promising to make you stand out, it's always the same tactic. Make it rare, make it special, make it yours. And here's the haunting part. Even when you know these strategies exist, they still work. The human mind is predictable. It follows patterns, and those who understand the patterns can lead you without ever touching your will. So now that you've seen the blueprint, now that you recognize the quiet architecture of control, the question becomes, does this knowledge make you free or just more aware of your chains? If the game is real, if manipulation is everywhere, then what do you do with that truth? Do you fight? Do you play? Or do you pretend not to see? Because in the next part, we're stepping off the page and into the real world. You'll see these strategies not as theory, but as daily reality. The only question left is, are you ready to see it? So far, we've explored the invisible mechanics of manipulation, the strings behind power, belief, and desire. But this isn't just theory. It's happening now, around you, to you. And unless you learn to see it, you'll keep reacting to a script written by someone else. Let's start where it's most obvious. Politics. No leader controls by force alone, not in today's world. The real game is narrative. Create a villain, invent a savior, stir emotion. It doesn't matter if you're left or right, progressive or conservative. Every powerful figure knows that people don't follow data. They follow stories, and the simpler the story, the stronger its grip. Marketing works the same way. Luxury. Brands don't sell bags, they sell prestige. Tech giants don't just offer devices, they sell identity. You're not told what to buy. You're shown a world where that choice already feels inevitable. If everyone around you uses something, if the media repeats its value, if artificial scarcity adds urgency, then when did the choice become yours? Social media. That's the new empire. Algorithms don't just guess your interests, they shape them. You scroll, thinking you're in control, but the system feeds you what keeps you scrolling. Rage, fear, validation, dopamine. The strongest content isn't the truest, it's the most emotionally triggering. That's what gets amplified. That's what hijacks attention. Even human relationships are not exempt. Charisma is often nothing more than emotional engineering. Magnetic people know how to be scarce, how to create tension, how to make you feel chosen. They don't just speak, they influence. They know the weight of silence, the power of withholding, the art of making you lean in. And once you start seeing it, it's everywhere. In headlines, in ads, in conversations, in the quiet pauses between what's said and what's meant. You begin to realize manipulation isn't a rare event. It's the air we breathe. So the question now isn't, is it happening? But, what do I do with this awareness? Because seeing the wires doesn't free you on its own. You still need to choose your role, pawn, player, or something else entirely. To manipulate is to wield power, but with power comes a weight, a haunting question that never goes away. Am I being manipulated too? That's the paradox. The more you understand how influence works, the more you realize how little anyone is truly in control. Even the puppet master dances to unseen music. History is full of fallen giants who mastered the game, only to be devoured by it. Napoleon ruled through illusion and invincibility, yet died in exile, abandoned by those once enchanted by his charm. Dictators built fear machines and were swallowed by their own creation. CEOs who shaped billion-dollar empires with precision influence saw their legacy vanish the moment they lost utility. Power never guarantees permanence. But the real danger of manipulation isn't exposure, it's disconnection. The more you decode the mechanics, the more you question everything. Every interaction starts to feel rehearsed. Every word seems designed. Emotions look like tools. You stop seeing people. You see tactics. And then, the inevitable question arises. Is anything truly authentic anymore? The truth is harsh. Absolute freedom is a fragile illusion. Our choices are always touched by something. Systems, emotions, environments we barely notice. Knowing this can give you an edge. It can protect you, but it also forces you to confront a darker reality. The game never ends, and no one, not even the most awakened, is fully outside of it. So now you're standing at a crossroads. You can use this knowledge defensively, to shield yourself, to spot the moves before they're made. Or you can go further, use it offensively, to lead, to guide, to influence with intention. But there's a third path, and it's the most dangerous of all. To forget, to pretend you didn't see the strings, to slip back into the comfort of the dream, because now that you know, the question is no longer, what's true? The question is, can you ever unknow this? Can you go back to sleep once your eyes are open? Now you know. You've seen the strings. You've felt the pull. And deep down, you understand that behind many of the choices you once called yours, there was always a quiet force guiding your hand. The only question now is, what will you do with this awareness? You can't unsee it. Pretending you didn't hear these words won't change the world around you. The manipulation doesn't stop just because you look away. But now, you have a choice. You can resist. You can play. You can build your own map of the game. Because make no mistake, this world doesn't belong to those who are manipulated. It belongs to those who understand the manipulation. So here's a challenge. If this video opened your eyes, don't explain it to anyone. Don't argue. Just share it with someone who needs to see what you now see. Someone who always falls for the same narratives. Someone who never questions what seems obvious. Send it silently. Then watch how they react. And if you made it this far, I want you to realize something. You're rare. Most people will scroll away. Most will click out before the truth cuts too deep. But you stayed. You felt it. You wanted to know. That alone says something powerful about who you are becoming. So show it, not for me, but for those who are still watching in the shadows. Leave a mark, a like, a signal to the few who can see beyond the surface. And remember, real manipulation never feels like manipulation. Real control never introduces itself as control. So the next time everything seems too perfect, too easy to believe, that's the moment to ask, who's pulling the strings now?